So please join me in extending a warm welcome to Karen Stintz.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure for me to be here today and join such a group of powerful women and to know that the city is in safe hands because you are at the helm of so many wonderful corporations, businesses, and Pamela, a special thank you. Where are you, Pamela? Where are you? There you are. A special thank you to you for bringing all these incredible women together. It's truly an honor for me to be here, and I thank you very much for making time out of your day to come. I had to laugh actually because when I walked in, it was Mother's Day last Sunday, and as is what happens in the school, they send the kids and they get them doing arts and crafts for their moms so that the kids come home with something because most of the schools have female teachers and they know that dads don't always get to the store on time to buy mom a gift. Right? So sure enough, my daughter came home and she had designed for me this ceramic present. And I said, "Oh, sweetheart, what a beautiful black and white bowl." She said, "Mom, don't you know what it is?" I said, "It's not a black and white bowl." She said, "No, it's a panda." So when I saw the panda at my table, I knew today was going to be a good day. So as I say, I want to thank you very much for welcoming me here today. And just before I arrived here, actually, I was at another networking event for King's College, which was where I went to school. I actually started at Western. How many Western grads are here? Yeah, and I say started at Western because I was fortunate enough to have my first year at Saugeen. And if any of you had a first year at Saugeen, you would appreciate why my second year was at King's College. So I graduated from King's, and then I went on to Boston University to study journalism. And I see Daniel Dale in the audience. And I was actually quite lucky when I was at Boston because I had the privilege to learn that I was going to be a terrible journalist. And so, some people spend years in their career before they realize it's time to make a shift. I actually learned I needed to make a shift pretty quickly. And I'm actually in the process of reading Lean In. Has anyone read that book? Right? And it's about undervaluing your accomplishments and not taking enough, not recognizing your skills enough and always feeling as if you're about to be caught. And I was actually reflecting upon that and thinking, I wonder if that's what held me back for pursuing a career in journalism. No, I think I just would have been a bad journalist. So I feel pretty confident about that decision to pursue a different career. So then I went to Queen's and did an MPA at Queen's. And I did that because I've always believed the government has a role to play in building and supporting and improving people's lives. And so out of that, I went and had a career, and I then bought my house, I got married, and as was mentioned, I bought a house in North Toronto. And it was the first time in my life I actually started paying attention to municipal issues. I had been involved in campaigns sort of at the very low level federally, and I was interested in a lot of things that were going on federally, but I had never involved myself in municipal politics. And it was 2003, and as I say, I bought my house, and at the time I thought my house was grossly overpriced given what it was. But then I was listening to some of the dialogues that were going on at City Hall. And I kept hearing about all these crazy stories about paper bags full of cash and something about photocopiers, and then the mayor wasn't running again, and so it was a real opportunity for the city, I thought. And I thought, this is the campaign I'm going to get involved in. So back in 2003, I actually started helping John Tory. And out of that, I realized that there was an opportunity to run in my community. And the local neighbors were a little agitated, and they didn't feel as if their representative was actually representing their interests at City Hall. So I said to my husband, I think one day I'd like to run for office. And he said to me, you know what, there is no one day. There is today. And if you want to do something, you should do it. Now, my husband is also an amazing manager of expectations. He said, you're not going to win, but you'll never regret trying. So I said, okay, you know what, let's do it. And I also had the absolute benefit and privilege of working for, at the time, an incredibly strong woman who had pursued her own political dreams and was now my boss. And when I went to her and I said, I'd like to do this, she gave me every flexibility and every latitude in order to allow me to pursue this dream. And so off we went, and I knocked on doors, and I worked really hard, and in the back of my mind, I thought, well, you know what, as I'm talking to people, I'm like, you know what, maybe this is not such a crazy dream. But, you know, I didn't have my campaign, I have to, impress upon you how tight my campaign was. My husband was my campaign manager, fundraising chair, and an all-around go-to guy. My 72-year-old father, he was my sign crew. And my mother-in-law was my volunteer coordinator. So it was quite a dedicated effort. And you can't imagine my surprise in 2003 when I won. Because it was against all odds. No one predicted that I was going to win. And in fact, one of the Toronto Sun photographers said to me later, he said, you know, there's only 2 people I've seen be as surprised as they were when they won. One was Bob Ray. The other one was you. So it really was a remarkable moment. And now I've been at council for 11 years. And they've been a remarkable 11 years. They really have. And I served 7 of those years with David Miller. And, you know, and there was a lot of things that Miller did, but there was also a lot of things that we did that lost the trust of the public. And I don't know if many of you remember the garbage strike, and it was alluded to. And, you know, the garbage strike was the time where I think the city said to the administration and to the city and to City Hall, you know what, we understand the need to tighten our belts. We understand the need to pull together and stand behind the city administration while we fight for a more balanced contract. And we had the entire city saying, fight the fight. And so I understand why Rob Ford got elected. Because when the city was supposed to fight the fight, and when we had everyone standing behind us, the city caved, from my perspective. We were holding out for something that we didn't achieve, and in the process, we asked people to come with us on this journey, and they lugged their garbage to the parks, they put up with the weeds, they put up with the disruption in service because they said, we need to do this together. And in fact, we didn't deliver to you. And so Rob Ford got elected. And Rob Ford got elected for lots of reasons. And one of them was the gravy train, which we know doesn't exist. One was the fact he was going to shake up City Hall, which he certainly did. And the other was the whole notion that, you know what, we just don't need City Hall to be doing all the things that they're doing. And City Hall actually isn't help improving my life. City Hall just continues to pass bylaws and legislations that makes it more difficult to live here. So there was lots of reasons that Rob Ford got elected. And you know, and I would say probably for the first 2 years, despite some of his missteps, he was probably, by and large, doing the job that people expected him to do. Because I hear that a lot. I hear, you know what, well, you know, we voted for him to outsource the garbage, he outsourced the garbage. We voted for him to get the union contracts under control, he got the union contracts under control. And so, you know, I hear that. And you know, what I like to remind people as well, though, is that he's not the only one with the track record. Because, in fact, I was at City Hall at the same time, and I voted to outsource the garbage, and I voted to get the union contracts under control. And I not only did it at City Hall, but I did it at the TTC. So I take some issue with the fact that Rob speaks as if he's the only one with a record. Because I have that record, too. The one thing I don't have is a belief system that is misogynistic, bigoted, homophobic, rude. I don't break the law on a regular basis. Once I was caught, it's true. Once I was caught going through a stop sign on my bike. It is true. And that's a whole other story. But, you know, I look at this mayor and I think, you know what? It's not good enough that you have a track record of achievement on things that you actually didn't do on your own. You're not the role model for my children. You don't represent me. I don't think you've earned the right to continue to be our mayor. And so people say, well, why can't we get rid of him? And only he can choose to step down, which he's chosen not to do, or we vote to make a change. And I'm running for mayor because I want to be part of that change. And I want to work with you on building that change. Because when I see our city and I see the opportunity and the potential for our city, it is enormous. And so why am I running for mayor? I'm running for mayor because I think that we do need an accountable government that is responsible and respectful to the people. That there are taxpayers that need to know that their dollars are being spent wisely. That I do believe that we have a problem with congestion. It is hard to get around. Every day it's difficult to get around because the network is not coordinated, because there's construction on north-south streets at the same time or east-west streets at the same time, and how often have you been caught behind a delivery vehicle that's parked their car illegally at 5 o'clock in a main arterial clogging up a street? And I say, well, why is their time more valuable than your time? It's not. And so we need to fix that. And that's why I have a plan in place to put together a transportation agency like they did in London, so that we can get the network moving again. Because the network has to work for everyone. It has to work for cars, it has to work for buses, it has to work for streetcars, it has to work for cyclists, and it has to work for pedestrians. And right now, on a daily basis, you will have evidence that it's just not working. And we need to do better. We also need to invest in transit. And some of you may have heard about the transit debates we've had. They have been very noisy. Unfortunately, they were positioned as LRT versus subway. And in fact, it's not LRT versus subway because we need both. And in fact, we're building both right now. We're building an LRT along Eglinton, and we're building a subway up to York Region. And we have plans to build more LRTs and plans to build more subways. But the one thing we cannot do, whether you agree or disagree with the plan, I will argue very strongly, the one thing we cannot do is revisit a transit plan again. We have to break the cycle of changing our transit plans with every election. People ask me, why doesn't transit get built? I tell them transit doesn't get built because we keep changing the plans. So whether we agree or disagree with all aspects of the plan, I encourage every single person who is running for mayor and voting for mayor to hold the mayor to account, to build the plans that are funded and approved. And I think about, some of you may know, our subway is 60 years old this year. From Union to Eglinton, it's 60 years old. And before that subway got built, there was a referendum. And the city went to the people and they said, do you want to build a subway? Do you want to spend this money? And so that vote was taken about 65 years ago. The youngest voter at the time would have been 18. So I tell my children, when you see someone in their 80s, go say thank you. Say thank you. Because they voted yes so that you could have the city that you have today. Because I can't imagine this city without that subway. And I think that that's the kind of decision that we need to think about, or the kind of things that we need to think about in this vote coming up. Because we're not voting for the next 4 years or the next 8. The decisions that we make in this election, we should be making for the next 20. And it is about transportation, it is about transit, it is about how we build a city that we're proud of. It is about making sure that we have the opportunities here for our kids to come home to. And people ask me, when I'm running for mayor, how do I balance it all? How do I make it all work? And, I'll be quite honest with you that some of my motives are selfish. I want my children to travel the world and to come back to Toronto and choose to live here because they know it is the best city to live in. That's what I want for my kids. And so when I ask my kids, what do you want to see in a city? My 7-year-old daughter, she said, I want a beautiful city. My son said, I want a bold and modern city. And so some of you may know that my logo is a sunflower. And the reason it's a sunflower is because sunflowers are bold. They have the strongest stem of any flower. They grow higher than anything else around them, and they always turn to face the sun. That's what our time is right now for this city. It is our time to be aspirational. It is our time to be bold. It is our time to be beautiful. And it's our time to turn and face the sun. Thank you.
Question and answer now. We do have 2 wireless microphones around the room, so if you could just stand if you have a question and introduce yourself so we can all get to know you.
No questions? Oh. Hey, how are you, Janet?
Thank you very, very much for this presentation today. You talked a lot about how you're different than Rob Ford. Thank you very much for that. Can you talk a little bit about the differences between you and John Tory and you and Olivia Chow?
Yes, thank you for that question. You know, I'm actually quite grateful to John Tory, because they say that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And I can tell you that John, over the last 2 weeks, has consistently taken over my policies and called them his own. And he's done it on the Gardner Hybrid, he's done it on Eglinton Connects, and he's done it on a number of other initiatives. So I like to joke, if you want to know what John Tory's next policy announcement is, go visit my website, www.karen2014.com. Because that's where he seems to be getting his information. And he's even taken some of my language, because I talk a lot about one city, building one city that we're connected from east to west, north to south, where the suburbs, this suburban core divide disappear, and we're building a city that we're all connected to. And part of it is by transit, and part of it is by economic growth and development, and part of it is by building safe neighborhoods. And he even took that. So I have 11 years on council and a record that I'm very proud of. And I lived through the David Miller years. And as I say, so while some good things were done, there are a lot of things that I don't think this city wants to see done again. And my strong belief and my strong view is that if we elect Olivia Chow, she is an NDP candidate, she represents the NDP view, and we will go back to the days of David Miller. And I just don't think that's where this city's at right now. And I think that there is a message of fiscal accountability that people do believe in. But they also want responsibility and accountability and a government that works. And that's why I'm running for mayor.
Hi, it's Cynthia Rosti from the Rosti Group. And I have a question regarding...
Sorry, I can't see you. Where are you?
Oh,
Oh, there you are. Okay,
I
thank
guess I
you.
should stand up. I have a question regarding transportation,
Yes,
and it's our taxi cabs.
yes.
So I don't know how many females in this room have been dropped off at wrong places, and I'm just wondering if there's any plan whatsoever to encourage more testing or
Okay, we do...
quality.
Yes, we do have a regular education program that we ask our taxi drivers to take as part of their licensing requirement. And if there's something that we need to include in that, then I'd like to talk to you about that to make sure that it gets done.
Okay, London, England, has the best taxi cab system in the world, as we all know.
Right.
And anyway, just throwing that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Karen, thank you so much for this wonderful talk we've had this morning.
Thank you.
My name is Kusum, and I'm a regular member of the Women's Executive Network. You're a very strong woman, and I admire you for that. I like strong women. I like people to state their point and to move on with it. The reason I'm addressing you right now is that I live downtown, very close to the St. Lawrence Market. And that is a very, very important heritage area. The city has not done enough. There seems to be very little attention being given to the fact that the heritage of Toronto, it's not just this part, the heritage areas all over Toronto, are not being addressed and captured. We've actually got developments that have been approved, which are running 30 floors up, which is totally unacceptable. What do you plan to do if you do get elected as mayor? Would you have any stand on this? Because we've been going to city meetings,
Yes.
and it's not moving fast enough.
Yes, I think there is a general feeling, if I understand the concern, it's twofold. One is we don't protect our heritage and our history enough, and the other is that we are building quite a bit of density in areas that can't accommodate it. And those are themes that I've heard through my 11 years at council, but I'm hearing more and more and more as I go across the city. And so we're looking at a couple things. One is looking at a development permit system, which will restrict and put better parameters on what can get developed in certain areas. And one of those areas is downtown, the other is at Yonge and Eglinton. And so we are taking steps to recognize as well that we cannot continue to build density without the corresponding infrastructure investment, because then our city just can't move and we need to move forward. And the heritage piece, we do have a commitment to heritage, but what I'm hearing is that we need to strengthen that commitment because it's not evidenced enough as our city is changing and growing. We need to have a better understanding of our roots and our history as we move forward. Did I capture that correctly? Yeah. All right. Vote Karen Stintz.
Mic on?
So,
Yes.
and then I actually wanted to answer one of those questions that was posted on the wall, but yeah.
Hi, Catherine Meyer with Catalyst Leadership Solutions. I wanted to know how you would balance fiscal responsibility with the need for building infrastructure, and subways are expensive.
Yes.
That's been a big part of the debate. So where does the funding come from?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a 15-year plan to raise $1.6 billion to invest in transit and transportation initiatives. And the next line I believe we need to invest in is the downtown relief line to take congestion off the Yonge Street line. And the way that we raise that money is right now, Toronto is a sole shareholder of Toronto Hydro. And Toronto doesn't set the utility rates. It's a highly regulated utility. We just, by virtue of amalgamation, happen to be the sole shareholder of that utility. And in other areas like Mississauga, they've actually sold part of their shares to an investor to help them run their utility better. We could do the same thing in Toronto. That utility is valued at $2 billion, and now we're holding on to all of it. If we got a partner, an investment partner, and divested ourselves of 50% of it, we could realize anywhere between $500 and $1 billion. Added to that, a small increase on parking in the downtown lots that are currently below market rate, $3 surcharge, we could raise $100 million over 15 years. Add to that the idea that, and again, it could just be my pet peeve, and I'm okay if it is. But when I see the UPS truck and the Canada Post truck and the Shred It truck with all of the tickets in their window that are just kind of flapping underneath their windshield wiper, when they're blocking a lane of traffic, I get quite annoyed. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change how we manage that, and all the revenues that we get from that kind of illegal parking and illegal activity, we're going to redirect those revenues into fighting congestion into that fund. So there is a sustainable plan for the next 15 years to invest in transit and transportation so that we stop just talking and we stay committed to building. Yes, there's a question here.
My name's Constance Crosby. I'm from Cisco. And thank you for your wonderful words. I'm delighted to hear you talk also about the hydro. I don't know, I think probably some others in this room were also affected by the flooding, which effectively is the lack of storm sewers.
Yes.
Now, the City of Chicago had all of its insurers suing the City of Chicago for the lack of facilities, and unfortunately, perhaps we have a different legal system. We can't do that here for government. But it doesn't mean there isn't a problem, and I'm glad to hear you were addressing the hydro. What are we going to do about that, or is that something that needs to sit on the side because of the transit greater necessity?
No. We are recognizing that much of our water and sewer infrastructure in certain areas of the city is inadequate. We're undertaking those studies right now. And there is a committed push to making sure that we do upgrade that infrastructure. And again, it's just, once again, balancing the construction and how we do it and making sure that we don't paralyze our city as we're upgrading our infrastructure. Okay.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
I'm Judy Davies from JD Design Solutions. Can you tell me where you stand on the expansion of the Island Airport?
Yeah, the expansion of the Island Airport is it's an issue we need to know more about. So Council unanimously passed a resolution asking the city manager to work with the Port Authority on a couple key considerations. One is, and it's not so much the jets, because the jets, if they don't make any noise, doesn't really matter, right? If a tree falls in the forest and you can't hear it, doesn't matter. But it is about, if we increase traffic on that airport, number one, who pays for the investment? Who pays for the infrastructure expansion? And then what else is needed to accommodate the increase in traffic? And so once we get a better idea on that, we'll be in a better position to make a decision. Yeah. Well, that's something we're looking at as well, because the agreement we have right now, it has parameters around a number of things. And if we have a new agreement, we're going to need to put some new parameters around them. So, and pollution, noise, traffic, congestion, cost, expansion, the impact on the waterfront, those are all things that we need to consider before we make a decision. But before I turn over the mic, I just wanted to answer one of the questions that was posed to the group this morning when you were talking about trying to develop conversation at the tables. And the question was, what is the best thing that you like about your neighborhood? So I live in North Toronto, so there's lots of things I like about my neighborhood, but one of the things I love the most about my neighborhood is that I have 5 neighbors, just because of the way my lot's configured. I have a lot of neighbors. But my back neighbor, where we share a back lot line, they have 3 kids. My daughter and their daughter, they're in class together, and I have 2 dogs, they have a dog, and they play a lot together. And as I say, because of the way my house is, the kids would have to walk all the way around the block if they wanted to go play with my neighbors in my neighbor's backyard. And we decided, you know what, that doesn't make any sense. So we cut a hole through the fence. And so now we have a little gate. So my kids can go through the gate to easily get into the neighbor's backyard to play. So not only do the kids go through the gate, our dogs go through the gate. So our dogs play together, and my father, he scratches his head, he's like, Jesus, even the dogs have a play date in this neighborhood. But I look at it, and it's one of the best things about living in Toronto, because we are a global city. We have 2.7 million people. We have industry. We have transit. I mean, we have issues, but we have one of the best cities in the world to live in, and yet we're also a city of neighborhoods. And that's what makes Toronto the best place to live, and that's why I want my kids to travel the world and come home and choose Toronto. Thank you.